Folks, hello and welcome to week one of Math 126. We're going to get started here in block one, which has been titled Math for Everyday Life, with a quick introduction to the learning objectives for this week. Again, just thinking about the course itself, what we're going to try to do here in the course is show how some very simple mathematical ideas, bottom line, help us become better consumers and more informed consumers, and really express how mathematics is part of everyday life. And that is tied up here in this first set of learning objectives, where we're going to look at some very common mathematical ideas such as ratios, proportions, rates, and percentages, and how can we use those in very common scenarios that we face routinely, and how do we use those to help us become better consumers. So a good week to get the course started. So that's the learning objectives over here in the upper right here. While we're here, obviously in week one, let's just talk about some quick keys to success. The first, obviously, make sure that you take some time this week to go through the syllabus. I'm going to show you where that is here in just a second. Before I do that, what I want to also mention is in the syllabus, it talks about purchasing access to what's called the Zybook. And the Zybook is the resource that we will use for the course. I've got this hyperlinked here. Let's see. Let's go over to the home page here, and let me start with. So when I reference the SNHU homepage, this is where you land when you log into Brightspace. So this is the SNHU homepage. Our course homepage here, if you just click on your Math 126 link, you'll get a series of announcements. And for the Zybooks, it looks like it's a couple below my course introduction to you. So this is the information you need to get started to purchase your Zybook. And then if you go over here to the course menu link and go down to learning modules, if you click on the start here link, you will have a link here to the syllabus. Probably best to download this PDF version, and that way you have it. Let's see. One of the things that's really nice about your SNHU courses is every assignment has a rubric. And if you're not familiar with the rubric, it's basically an explanation of how your assignments are going to be graded. So whenever you have an assignment to complete during the week, it's always a good idea to take a quick look at the rubric and how you are going to be graded on a certain assignment. Last but not least, communication between myself and you, and between yourself and your classmates, is number one, it's important. Second of all, it's really good to enrich your experience. So if you ever have any questions for me, please feel free to reach out with an email, or you can send a note to me on the general discussion board. If you want to have some discussion amongst yourselves, you're welcome to do that offline. You're welcome to do it on one of the discussion boards. But please understand the value of that interaction to enrich your experience here in the course. In terms of assignments for this week, we have four. Two within the Zybooks. One's called the participation activity. The second is the challenge activity. We'll have our first discussion post this week. Just as a general rule, obviously there's a primary post that comes from you, and then there is some interaction with at least a couple of your classmates. The primary posts are typically going to be due on Thursdays by midnight, and then discussion with your classmates by midnight on Sunday night when the module week closes out. If there's any question on that, please let me know. And then this week you'll have a quiz. You'll have 2 attempts on this quiz, and the attempts are not timed. As you go through the syllabus this week, you're going to see a lot of discussion about your course project. And so what I thought I would do is I would use this bottom left block here to just talk quickly about this. And what I've done here is I've hyperlinked some idea or some information that is provided back in the course. So let's go to this. The first here is kind of a general overview of the project. And what you have here, this is if you go to the table of contents and the assignment information link, you will find this project guidelines in the rubric. And what you're going to see here is a general overview of the project. You're going to do, or you're going to choose one of 3 scenarios to base your project upon. And then there's all kinds of directions here on, what it is that you're going to do in order to complete the project. And towards the bottom, there's a nice template for you to use here, so you can have a kind of an idea of how to put together this final product. Obviously, and I will make sure that I note this as we go through the course, but there will be incremental submissions on this. The first one being during week 3, you'll have a proposal. And that way we make sure that everybody is on track and we don't get to week 8 and realize that, we missed the point of what we're supposed to be completing in the project. And then, as I mentioned before, you have the project rubric here. Obviously, you want to take a good look at that. So that's kind of the roadmap for the project. Depending on what scenario you choose here, I've hyperlinked another, idea here from the assignment information link, and this is project resources. So whether you're choosing scenario 1, scenario 2, or scenario 3, what's contained here is really a lot of good information, a lot of good data that will serve as the basis for your project. So you definitely want to take a good look at this. And the last hyperlink I have here is, in the spirit of trying to tie together this course from end to end, what are the things that we are going to do during the course that, help us and kind of coach us through this project. And I thought this was a really nice chart to look at to make sure that, again, we keep in mind this idea of really integrating the course from week 1 to week 8, how we kind of tie this all together and how this really supports your project. So just a good overview, number 1, of the course and how it all ties together to help you with your project. This last block here in the quad chart for this week, I want to talk about quickly concepts, terminology, and notation. And I think concepts, terminology, and notational are really the foundational ideas for every math or statistics or really any course we take in STEM. And as I went through the first Zybook assignment for this week, I picked out 3 small scenarios here that have a concept that we'll just take some time to take a look at here to make sure everybody's comfortable with what's being presented here. And this first one talks about a gentleman who's going out on a snowboarding vacation, and he's got 2 options for getting a snowboard. He can either rent one for $40 a day, or he can buy one for $240. The kicker is here, if he buys the snowboard, he gets to sell it back. And what he's going to get in return is he's going to get 1/3 of the new price. And so what we want to talk about here is, what is 1/3 of the new price? What is that all about? So if we think of 1/3 of anything, what does that mean mathematically? How do we figure that out? So in this case, what we want to know is, what is 1/3 of $240? What is it, and how do we figure that out? And very simply here, this is just going to be some quick multiplication of 2 fractions. And I'm going to turn 240 into a fraction because we know that 240 divided by 1 is still $240. So the quick math here to figure out what Mike would get in return is just to simply take this product of 1/3 times 240. The ones would cancel, and what we're left with here would be 240 divided by 3, which means that Mike would be able to sell back the board for $80. So just a quick idea in that regard. This next one revolves around not taking or not using a fraction to find a proportion or a portion of some value, but in this case, a decimal. And here we got 20%. Let's first talk about what 20% means. So this symbol percent really comes from 2 words, per and cent. And cent is the French word for 100. So if you think of 20 per 100, or if you think of 20%, another way to write that is 20 per 100. And equivalently, if we think of that then as a decimal, if we take 20 divided by 100, what we get for a decimal is 0.20. So if we think about that and we think about what is, let's see, what is 20% of $40? The math is very simple to what we just did with the fraction, but instead here we're multiplying 0.20 times $40, and you can do the math there and find out that there's a savings. I shouldn't have put the decimal there. I apologize for that. Let me erase. We definitely don't want a decimal there. But what we see here in this case is there is a savings. Let me see if I can get my pen working here again. A savings of $8. So to compare and contrast these first two ideas, using a fraction to take a portion of some amount, and then the second is using a percentage to take a portion of some amount. And then finally, everybody loves the having the convenience of a car, but down here we find that it's very expensive to have a car. And what our AAA is saying, the cost of a car is per year, it's $10,700 plus 18 cents a mile. And we know mathematically that 18 cents is 0.18. So if I wanted to figure out, let's say, what would happen if I drove 1,000 miles a year? What would be my total ownership cost in this case? Well, I would start with my basis of 10.7, and then what I would add to that is for every mile that I'm driving, I take 18 or 0.18 times that. So what I'm adding here looks to be another $180 to my already very expensive $10,700 to drive the car. And so in this case, again, just another idea of what does this mean and how do we integrate it into the scenario, which goes back to this great idea that we talked about up front, is identifying the essential mathematical elements in a situation, both the context and the mathematics. So folks, I hope this is helpful to get us going for the first week. If there's anything I can do to improve these, by all means, let me know and I will do that. Have a great week, and I look forward to working with you.